No, so Nicole, congratulations to you and to my man Nelson because I love anything that he does. I'm starting to become a fan of you too because I've been talking about this on our live shows the last 3 weeks. Because anytime you could talk about David Bowie, and I was telling everybody about him discovering Luther Vandross because a lot of people don't know that, and David also being one of the few two white performers to ever go on Soul Train and Elton John. I'm telling the people in the South about that who may not know about that. I'm telling them to see this film. I started talking about it 4 weeks ago. This is an excellent film. And I've been waiting for years for someone to do something like that. Congratulations to you both. Talk about how long it took to do this and even getting some of the rights because those little golden nuggets like that are classic. People need to know the history of this and not enough of them know that.
Well, this was about a 2-year process from the beginning. We made like a quick little trailer for this film in like April of 2023, I want to say. But the seeds of the film started with the Miles Davis film that Stanley and I worked on together. Yeah, we had a party, the after party for the premiere at Sundance, and funk music was playing, and our co-producer was like, "So what should we work on next?" And Stanley said funk, and that one word pitch is what brought us here today. So, but it was about 2 years working on the film itself. And yeah, a big part of that was just the research and developing. It was a very broad topic. As anybody who's a fan of the funk knows, there's no shortage of artists, no shortage of music, and it really took a lot of doing to like kind of narrow it down into a focus that wasn't so much about being an encyclopedic history of funk music, but really getting to like what funk music is and how it makes us feel.
See, it was important enough for me to say I need to interview someone from this because where are we at? We're at 725 million views and counting. I'm hoping by the end of the summer we can break 1 billion views. How many people can say that? But the reason why it's important about documentaries because I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. May 9th, I will be in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm telling everybody about the films that I've been seeing in the South that haven't been making it to New York or Los Angeles. And that bothers me because I'm all about the arts. It's all about supporting independent films. And I think, watching this and maybe think back when I last interviewed George Clinton, when I was last talking to Isaac after he had a heart attack. A lot of the icons are gone. We don't have a Prince. We don't have a Michael Jackson. We don't have a Tom Petty. We don't have a David Bowie. They're not being replaced. So I am doing everything in my power to make sure that people see these things. I had been talking about Gloria Gaynor 2 years ago when I found out the National Film Festival. I took it to Los Angeles. They didn't even know about it. I was pissed off, Nicole. So that's why these interviews are important to me because when I'm traveling throughout the country, I'm telling them about the stuff that they can't see because we've lost 5,000 theaters and people they're not paying attention to these things. So it's really, really important. So anytime I see them on PBS or Nashville PBS, which I talk to people down there, it's important to see these things.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that you're in North Carolina because we just screened, I think yesterday, at the River Run Film Festival, and
Yeah.
we screened a couple weeks ago at Full Frame in
Yeah.
Raleigh, Durham. And those were and if you have a chance, if you go to the ITVS website, they do have, I think, a listing of where the film is screening across the country. They're doing like these small pop-up screenings all over. And if you get a chance, you should see the film in person because it's a totally different experience than seeing it at home, even with friends. It's to see it in a theater, a crowded theater, if possible, it really gives you that feeling of being in the best funk concert or on the best funk dance floor. That energy that really comes across. And so we're trying to get the film out that way, as well as obviously being broadcast on PBS. And then there's a YouTube link so people can still, and they're watching it by the thousands every day. So we're really gratified by that. It's doing really great on YouTube. But yeah,
Well,
these
and I
things are
love
so
that because I
important.
do go in and I do tell them where you can see it and where it's coming. That's why I'm talking about these things every week. They're like, why do you keep talking about it? Because a year, 2 years later, people still haven't seen a lot of stuff. I'm specifically going to Nashville. I wasn't going to go next month, but Brenda Lee documentary came out, so they invited me to the National Country Museum to come see it because they know I've been championing these films. So I'll be talking about We Want the Funk. I'll be talking about the Luther Vandross, Never Too Much. I'll be talking about all of these things. And I don't just talk about them black films. I'm talking about just films in general. There's so very few of us last critics left that started in I started in 1991 doing this. Siskin and Lieber are gone. All those people, we don't have any. We've got maybe 10 of us left. That's not good. So
Right.
that's why I'm talking about these things all the time. And again, congratulations to you and congratulations to Stanley on this.
Well, thanks again, and thanks for spreading the word. But it's also about, people like you who want to share their knowledge and their information. And that's how we arrive at this film. It's the collaborative process. Um, we wouldn't have had an Elton John, portion of the film if Donnie Simpson hadn't mentioned him in his interview out of nowhere, and then Kirk Franklin mentioned him in his interview out of nowhere. That couldn't have become a section in the film without, those two people, making that contribution. We wouldn't even have had a Carlos Alomar in the film had our editor, Mark Faison, he edited the Luther Vandross film. And he's like, oh, you should really talk to this guy, Carlos Alomar. He's a great storyteller. He's worked with Luther and he's worked with David Bowie and he worked with James Brown. You should really talk to him. And that's somebody that I don't think would have come up on our radar, at least not in the same way, without having someone share that information with us, share that knowledge with us. And so here we are with this like wonderful section that we were kind of able to flesh out. And that was entirely through that collaborative process, but that sharing of information, because you don't in the David Bowie story, I don't know how largely written a Carlos Alomar is outside of people who are in the music industry, who are in the know. And you can't, and those stories are so important to be, to be told, and from the highest to the lowest as much as we can. So thank you for what you're doing.
Well, it's one of those things in 2018, when I was picking films for the Hollywood Film Festival in 2014, I was finding these gems on Film Freeway, and that when people weren't getting into festivals. And I tell people, I know what it's like to pick a film. I don't go by a 10-minute rule, which is ridiculous. You're supposed to watch it from the beginning to the ends and look at the credits. And if for those people who are actors or whatever, I am not, look who cast it. Look where it was shot. Anytime you see, that big peach at the very end, it's shot at Tyler Perry Studios. My sister lives right next to him. I was there when Tyler first started. And so seeing all these things and being part of the Elvis Presley brand because of my southern mom and divided me down, I didn't know she was Elvis's cousin. I get to hear all the little tidbits that've never been told of stuff. James Brown spending 20 minutes at his funeral by himself. Nobody knows about a lot of these things, but they're the last survivors. I'm being brought in as the non-white person there, and they welcomed me and said, hey, Brian, look at this. You may find it. We want to give this to you because we know you'll preserve it some kind of strange way. So I feel like you two in an opposite way. And by the way of that, I start my day off, Stevie Wonder, I Was Made to Love Her, on YouTube. I go to the barcades. I go to Cameo, Shake Your Pants. This is my daily thing because I don't drink coffee. So that's how I wake up, by doing stuff on my 3 computers.
Well, you see, that's the power of the funk, right? You can't
Absolutely.
listen to it and like feel sad. You get an energy from it. You get a vibe, a feeling of being taken higher, and that's what we exactly wanted to bring out in the film. If nothing else, is that funk can make you feel good.
And I'm going to talk about this on my live show again tonight, which is why really I wanted to talk to one of you, because you can never talk about it enough, and I don't see enough people talking about it enough. We should be talking about it. If the theater owners want that 120 or 90 days, which is they're never going to get back again, we have to be talking about it. What few of us are left who see movies for a living. And I travel cross country to all these things because I'm invited to these things. But I'm kind of retired, so I can't do it all by myself anymore, But again, when you find a good movie, you never stop talking about it. Just like a good album, you never stop listening to it, right?
Exactly, exactly. And we have found that every screening has been packed that we have, even the smallest in the library in whatever little library in New Jersey, the corner of New Jersey, packed. and people excited and coming up to us and saying, oh, this is the music of my childhood. I want to make sure my kids know this music. You know, I feel so good. And they're standing up and dancing in the aisle at the end. You know, we kind of want that, as much as we can spread that around, the better. So, you know, as much as people can see it and talk about it, that's so warming for us.
I know I got 2 minutes left. You know what I get a kick out of? I get a kick out of seeing the I call them the zombies, Generation Z, because their communication skills suck. But it's one of those things when they're dancing and pop locking to it, that's going back to the roots. But these are people of color in different countries. I love seeing that.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of visually give that sense of connectedness that we have, even if it's not necessarily what you would consider funk. Sometimes that music translates. So, you know, that feeling translates. So even if you can't find the funk in you know, like what we call American funk, they can find the funk in their own cultures. But as we all know, American funk translates really well all around the
Absolutely.
world.
And you know this because once people started traveling outside the U.S., which is what I still love to do, you get to see what people are listening to full force, and that's a great thing. And for me, that old DJ, and I started in 1977. I went to an all-white high school. I was the first one to play Rappers Delight there. They had a sock hop, and I said, "Oh my God, good thing I got 2 turntables. I better be the black DJ because that would be embarrassing if it weren't." But that's how I started, and that's how I started in radio. So I think of going back to those days of getting that mixture stuff and now being able, you know, with Ken Burns in a way to go to the South and find out the roots of country music. And, you know, the difference is there really isn't any difference. They all got together and had some fun in Soulville, you know, in Memphis, you know.
Yeah, they're like the roots are kind of one and the same, aren't they? I mean,
Yep, they
you
are.
know, but you know, as much as we gotta but you can't stop telling it because you know, you never know, because we might be in a time where the original stories are being lost.
Yep.
Um, and you know, you want people to know as much about the truth as they possibly can. And the only way to do that is to keep telling your truth, keep telling your truth, keep telling our stories.
And that's why I do that. The last question, what do you say to get the audience to come out and see this? And how can they follow the film around?
Well, for one, obviously check out the PBS, the ITVS website again for those pop-up screenings. Just type in like Indie Lens pop-up, and you should be able to get to that list. But mainly of all, the PBS portal on YouTube. Like I said, there's a link there, and it's already at over 275,000 views in the last 5 days. So it's doing pretty well. And this is PBS. We're not like the biggest YouTube portal, but people are finding the film and they're loving it.
Congratulations. And that's the whole thing because I was talking to people, Barbara Hall from Nashville Public Television. And it's all the only reason I got hooked up with it because I was championing a film called Minnie Pearl, on how she started. Who knew? And people don't know she was a civil rights activist, but staying in Tennessee, she's the first influencer when you think about it with the tag on her hat. She never left Tennessee, but she became that icon. But she also turned George Wallace down. And a lot of people don't know that because she was against that.
Oh, wow.
So again, those things like that are fascinating.
I'll have to look it up.
It's called Minnie Pearl. It's on Nashville Public Television. So again, what I'm doing for them and people in Georgia all around, even though I live in Los Angeles, I'm just finding the films because they're not making it every place, as you know, as a filmmaker now. Things have changed.
Oh, absolutely. And if you can, there's probably a few more screenings in LA. I highly encourage you to try to make it to one.
I'll be back there. I won't be back there till June. I'll be back for the Los Angeles Greek Film Festival, Dances with Films, and I'm waiting for the announcement with the Los Angeles Jewish Film Festival because they're like, Brian, where are you? You need to be here because it's very few people that go up and support them.
Right.
Well, Nicole, thank you so much. And thank you, Stanley. And please let me know what you guys are working on next because no one's beating my viewership. Nobody. And I tell everybody that because we worked hard the last eight years to get this. So like I said, by the end of summer, I hope we'll have reached 1 billion views at that point. And that's why everybody wants us around the world because we got the numbers. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
wow, that's fantastic. Well, congratulations on your success. I'm just excited to be a small part of that.
Oh yeah, I'll be talking about this tonight. That's why I wanted to talk to you, because I'm like, you got to get me someone, because I listen to this every day. That's my coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. That gets me going.
That's fantastic. I love
Thank
that.
you.